Good evening, councillors. You're warmly welcome to this charity trustees meeting with Sussex District Council. I'm going to read in the first instance the fire evacuation. This announcement is to be made to all councillors. The building fire alarm signal is a continuous two-tone alarm. On hearing the evacuation alarm, please leave the building by the nearest marked exit route. Follow the green signs to the assembly point, large staff car park opposite the entrance to the building. Anyone who cannot use the stairs will be helped by the officers present after other people have left. Please do not return to the building until safe it is to do so by an authorised officer. The whole of the council site is a no smoking area. Filming from the public gallery is permitted, but members must please refrain from filming within the council chamber so as not to distract the meeting. Mobile phones must be switched to silent. Thank you. And moving on to item 1 is to confirm as correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of October 2022, pages 3 to 4 of your papers. Could members please vote using the microphone touchscreen in front of you. Thank you. The vote is now closed. I'm asking Kevin Toogood to read the results.
Thank you, Chairman. So the voting is concluded. Votes in favour 37, against 0, with 1 abstention, so the motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. Please asking members to raise their hand if they wish to speak on this item. No. I have none. So members, we have none. That's right. So I'm going to move on to item 3, to consider any items that the chairman of the charity trustees agree to take as urgent business. I have none. So I'm moving on to the main item, item 4, which is the Beechhurst Gardens Charitable Trust, Haywards Heath, West Sussex, charity number 305202. Grant of a 5-year lease to kiosk tenant. I'm going to invite the Assistant Director of Legal and Democratic Services, Kevin Toogood, to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, councillors. So a very brief introduction. As the Chairman said, this is a matter relating to the Beechhurst Gardens Charitable Trust and the grant of a proposed 5-year lease to the tenant of the kiosk. The current tenant is a fairly long-standing tenant of the council. The first lease was granted or a licence rather, granted in 2016, and she's taken various leases and licences since then. There was a break due to COVID, but she'd like to take a new lease with us. Officers have agreed broad heads of terms which are set out in the papers. As the Chairman's mentioned, the proposed term of the lease is 5 years from the commencement of the lease, with a rental of £2,816 per annum, excluding VAT. Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to take any questions.
Have I got any councillor wishing to ask Kevin a question? No? I see none. I'm going to state the recommendations being voted on for the benefit of members, viewers and listeners. The recommendation is on page 9. The charity trustees are recommended to 1. Grant consent to alter the external seating area, signage and reader decoration. Members to vote using the microphone touchscreen.
Thank you, Chairman. The votes are 42 in favour, no noes and no abstentions, so that motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. I'm now going to conclude the meeting, stating the time is now 10 to 7, and ask members to remain seated. The main meeting, the council meeting will start at 7 p.m. The public speakers will be admitted for council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. Welcome, and members of the public. You're most welcome to this, our Mid Sussex District Council meeting here on the evening of Wednesday, the 29th of March. I'd first like to, as we have members of the public in the gallery, I'd like to read the evacuation notice. The building fire alarm signal is a continuous two-tone alarm. On hearing the evacuation alarm, please leave the building by the nearest marked exit route. Please follow the green signs to the assembly point, large staff car park opposite the entrance to the building. Anyone who cannot use the stairs will be helped by the officers present after other people have left. Please do not return to the building until told it is safe to do so by an authorised officer. The whole of the council's site is a no smoking area. Filming from the public gallery is permitted, but members must please refrain from filming within the council chamber so as not to distract the meeting. Please note that mobile phones must be switched to silent. Thank you. I'm going to ask the Vice Chairman to read the opening prayer.
Thank you, Chairman. O Lord, grant us courage to strive for what is right and good, courtesy to listen to those of different opinion, strengthen us through our difficulties and pressures, and guide us in our deliberations so that we may act in the interests of all in our district, to the glory of your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Vice Chairman. I'm now going to move on to item 2, to receive questions from members of the public pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 9. We have received 2 questions. First question is from Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks is not with us, so I'm going to read out the question. From November 2023, the Environment Act 2021 will amend the Town and Country Planning Act to force developers to provide a biodiversity increase of at least 10% for their projects. If this can't be done on the site itself, it should be done locally, off-site, or via the purchase of national credits. What is the Council's strategy to maximise the investment in biodiversity at a local level? Are there any flagship projects which could be built on the back of this policy? I'm going to ask a response from the Cabinet Member for Planning to respond.
Thank you, Chairman, and to Mr. Brooks, I'm sure he'll get the response as and when. I welcome this question because it allows us to once again highlight the importance of improving biodiversity, which this council has been pursuing. It's important to note that the national planning policy has an ambition to secure net gain in biodiversity, although it doesn't actually specify until later on what. But the Environment Act 21 makes a 10% mandatory requirement as of November of this year. The Council has long held a commitment to securing improvements, and we're not waiting for it to become mandatory. The current district plan, adopted in 2018, requires developers to take opportunities to improve, enhance and manage biodiversity. The Site Allocations Development Plan, adopted in 2022, includes a requirement to deliver a net gain to biodiversity, and the Emerging District Plan, and this is the important bit, includes policies which call for the mandatory 10%, but requires that to be increased to a minimum of 20% on significant sites. 5 years ahead of this statutory requirement, we also led the way in 2018 with a minimum 10% requirement on the then Northern Arc, which is now known as Brookley. In fact, monitoring at Brookley shows that on-site biodiversity net gain could well exceed 20%. Furthermore, we continue to work with all the developers making application in our district to achieve 10% on current planning proposals, despite it not being mandatory. The legislation is clear that these improvements can be provided on or off-site via statutory diversity credits. Operational details are still being developed by the government, and consultation was recently carried out on the proposed draft regulations. Apart from making gains through planning, this council is also going further in our sustainable economic strategy, which aims to improve, manage and promote biodiversity and nature recovery. As a result, the Council is refreshing the management plans for our countryside sites to ensure they deliver maximum benefit and build on the current success of local rewilding initiatives under the National Blue Campaign. And in case people don't know what the Blue Campaign is, I'll just mention it. Okay, in response to a dramatic biodiversity and biomass decline in the UK, the wildlife filmmaker Fergus Bealey started a very simple process. He just said, if you've got a piece of ground, let it go and see what happens. And with the best, you know, it's one of the best ideas because it's so amazingly simple. It's been taken up across the country. Lots of people, if you see a stake with a blue heart on it, this means that it's been following the blue scheme. Blue, I guess, because if it was green, you wouldn't actually see it, would you? So, anyway, it's blue. And people with private gardens, allotments, business yards are all taking up this scheme. And a number of councils are also working with the Blue Campaign to rewild council land and roadside verges. So there's good stuff going on, folks. Thank you. And I hope Mr. Brooks appreciates that response. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salisbury. There's no supplementary question as Mr Brooks is not present. So I'm going to move on to question number 2. Mr Bright. Mr Bright, would I ask you to give your question?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and the councillors. Thank you. The MSDC leader stated in the latest Hub video that Clare Hall's refurbishment could cost £3 million. The June 2022 property report showed costs could be spread over a number of years. The 20th of December 21 report called for investment options, but no calculations have been published to date. A closure footfall at the hall was 55,000 for the closure year, with 40 major art and culture shows being cancelled. Can the community now see the investment plan planned on the 20th of December 21, the plan for opening the hall with the same footfall and live performance figures as a starting point, with future projections of when the hall could open? And I would ask why this information is overdue, despite so much expenditure having been made by the council on consultancies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Bright. I'm going to ask the response from the leader, Councillor Ash Edwards.
Thank you, Mr Bright, for your question. Thank you, Chairman. The video to which Mr Bright refers was published to update local residents on the work that the Cabinet agreed to in late 2022 following the publication of the BOP report. And that was to engage in soft market testing with experienced cultural providers and operators. The aim of this work remains to advise us on the viability of each of the 2 options the Cabinet agreed to explore that have been transparently set out in previous reports. And I was very pleased, Chairman, to see the number of cultural providers who came to view the site and share their knowledge and expertise. The work currently being undertaken will enable a report back to Cabinet in relation to the next steps, and specifically to consider the 2 remaining options to either have a brand new building or a significant remodelling of the current building. The Council's focus remains to work to secure a cultural anchor tenant and investment partner who can help us deliver cultural and leisure provision in a modern, fit-for-purpose venue on the Clare Hall site. That report is not overdue. It is due to be delivered in the spring on schedule, and that will enable Cabinet to consider and propose next steps. And in the meantime, Chairman, the NHS are continuing to use the building and indeed will be undertaking their spring vaccination campaign there. And Chairman, I would just remind members that the public consultation in 2021 showed that 95% of residents wanted to see positive change on the Clare Hall site, and that's what we're working to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr Bright, would you like to ask a supplementary question to the leader?
Yes, please. Clare Hall was closed 3 years ago and, as the leader said, has been used by the NHS with volunteers ever since then. The hall, main door signage with the Clare Hall name over has been removed, and the grounds are very neglected and overgrown, and the community is naturally concerned that the hall will go in the same way as the martlets in Burgess Hill. Will the council please engage with local organisations to produce very quickly an investment plan for reopening Clare Hall in the more immediate timescale than is obviously currently being planned by the council, which we now learn will probably be 4 to 5 years now past the closure date?
Thank you, Mr Bright. Eda, would you want to provide a verbal response or a written response?
I'm happy to respond now,
Thank
Chairman, on a couple of points. Firstly, the building is the day-to-day operational responsibility of the NHS. The council has passed it over to them, and so the operational management of the building right now is the NHS's responsibility. And what I would just simply say is I would refer Mr Bright to the previously published reports because they transparently set out the work that we're undertaking, and as I said, the next reports following the work that the expert advisors are currently doing will be reported to Cabinet later in the spring. And the goal remains to ensure that we have a modern, fit-for-purpose community and entertainment venue on the Clare Hall site that meets the needs of the community for the next 50 years, rather than simply recognises what's been there for the last 50. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr Bright, do you wish to stay? You're welcome to listen to the rest of the meeting.
I shall go to the public gallery.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for asking those questions. Councillors, so now moving on to item 3, to confirm the minutes of the meeting of council held on the 1st of March 2023, pages 5 to 10 of your agenda. Does anyone wish to raise anything? Otherwise, I'm going to go straight to the vote. Using your microphone, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The vote is 40 in favour, 1 against, with no abstentions, so that motion is passed.
Thank you, councillors. Item 4, to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. If anyone wishes to speak, please raise their hand. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to declare an interest. I'm the County Councillor for Inverdown. So that's an interest in respect of item 7 on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other councillors wishing to speak. So I'm going to move on to item 5, to consider any items that the Chairman of the Council agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. I'm now going to move on to item 6. The Chairman's announcements. The recent engagements of the Chairman and Vice Chairman are listed on the Council's website. As you will be aware, this is the last meeting of this current Council, and therefore my term in office as Chairman of the Council. And in view of this, I would like to say a few words. It has been a real honour and privilege to have been the Chairman for the last 2 years. Apart from chairing the council meetings, I have represented the council on many occasions and had the pleasure of meeting many people from all walks of life throughout the district. I was particularly pleased to be able to acknowledge the work of just some of our fantastic volunteers at our hugely successful awards event last year, during which we were able to thank just some of the many people who work tirelessly in our community to make a real difference in people's lives. I'm truly indebted to our volunteers. I'm also pleased to say that my charity, the Kangaroos, has benefited not only in financial terms, but in spreading the name of the charity and what they do to help families throughout the district. I would like to thank the Democratic Services led by Terry and Lucinda, and for all the help and support the team have given me during my term in office. I must also thank the officers led by Catherine. Catherine has given me her support from the start of my term in office, and she has also shown me a great deal of kindness and support since my own personal tragedy. Finally, I would like to thank each and every councillor for your support and respect you have given me during our meetings throughout my term in office, and also for the very kind words of condolence I have received from so many of you since the very sad loss of Edward last November. I know that some councillors are not restanding, and to those councillors, please accept my very best wishes for the future. To those that are restanding and are successful, I hope that I will be joining you in this council chamber in May. Once again, thank you all for your support during my term in office. I'd like to invite Councillor Ash Edwards to have wishes to speak.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As you said, it's your final meeting as Chairman today, having served for 2 years. And on behalf of the Council, I wanted to thank you for the service that you have given. You have, I think, been an outstanding Chairman and absolutely exemplary in the way that you have carried out the role, calm, authoritative, professional, even-handed, all of the kind of qualities that you would want a chairman of a local authority to have, and you've exhibited all of those in spades. So a huge thank you from all of us for the work you've done, both in chairing our meetings and keeping everyone on track, but also out there in the community, and the money you've raised for charity as well. And we have a little something for you as a token of our appreciation.
Oh, gosh. Very much. Now we've got to get back to back to business. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. Right, we're going to move on to item 7. The extension of our public spaces protection order on car cruising. This was to be proposed by Councillor Boutrop. She's not with us, so I understand this will now be proposed by Councillor Norman Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. As the paper before us states, the current public space protection order remains in force for a period of 3 years until April of this year. A public consultation was held last November and December to extend the PSPO for a further 3 years, along with 2 additional areas, namely Jobs Lane off the A2300 and Birch's Industrial Estate in East Grinstead. And it was very good to hear that the public space protection order was made it onto the BBC Sussex and Surrey radio this morning again, and it featured some of the people who took the trouble to phone in on the occasion that the public space protection order consultation was launched, and it was good to hear those people again. And the results of the consultation were considered at the Community Leisure and Parking Scrutiny meeting on the 1st of February, and after careful consideration, the committee resolved to recommend to council that the public space protection order be extended for a further 3 years with the addition of those 2 new areas. So, Chairman, I want to thank the Scrutiny Committee for the work that they put into considering the validity of the public space protection order, and they considered the consultation responses as well. And, Chairman, I have no hesitation in proposing this item to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webster. Councillor Jonathan Ash-Edwards, you wish to second this motion? Do you wish to reserve your...
Right, if necessary, thank you.
Have any members wish to speak or have comments or ask a question on this motion? No? Can't see anyone. Right, Councillor Ash-Edwards, do you wish to speak?
I'm happy to go to the vote, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to state the recommendations being voted on for the benefit of members and viewers and listeners. The recommendations are on page 11 of your papers. The Scrutiny Committee for Community, Leisure and Parking recommended that Council 1. Notes the contents of this report, 2. Agrees to extend the existing PSPO for a further 3 years under the Anti-Social Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014 for the prohibited activities outlined in the existing order at Appendix 5 within the area defined on the map at Appendix 1. 3. Agrees to implement the PSPO under the Anti-Social Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014 for the prohibited activities outlined in the existing order at Appendix 5 within the 2 additional areas defined on the maps at Appendices 2 and 3. Could members please vote using your microphone touch screen, please?
Thank you, Chairman. In favour of the motion, 42, none against, none abstentions, so that motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you, councillors. We're now moving on to item 8, the Standards Committee Annual Report. This item is proposed by Councillor Bradbury and seconded by Councillor Webster. It's on pages 45 to 46 of your papers. I'd now like to move to Councillor Bradbury.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I'm coming to the end of my second session as Chairman of this committee. Colleagues may recall that Councillor Liz Bennett was the Chairman for a short while in between those times. And I'm very happy to propose the annual standards report to Council. Colleagues will recollect that the less business, this is the one committee where the less business it has to do, the better things are. And I'm pleased to report we've been an absolute hive of inactivity. I would just like to take this opportunity. The one substantive matter that we have discussed is the government's response to the new code of conduct, and that's available for anyone that is interested to read a copy of it, although I assume everyone knows it off by heart.
Of course.
I would just like, if I may, Chairman, just take the opportunity to thank all those councillors who served on that committee over the last few years. I'd particularly like to thank the town and parish councillors who've been on there, and of course the independent persons, and also particularly, if I may, to thank my vice chairman throughout that period, town councillor from Haywards Heath, Councillor Chris Ash-Edwards. I'm very happy to propose the standards report, annual report, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradbury. Councillor Webster, I understand you're going to second this motion. Do you wish to speak or retain your right to?
I am Chairman, and I would like to speak now.
Good.
If I may,
please do so.
And all I would like to do is add my thanks to Councillor Bradbury, the councillor members and the independent members of the Standards Committee. And I am under no hesitation in supporting this report to council.
Thank you, Councillor Webster. Do any members have any questions or comments they wish to make on this item? I see none. I am therefore going to move to the recommendations being voted on for the benefit of members and viewers and listeners. The recommendation is on page 45. The Council is recommended to note the contents of the report. Members could please vote on this using your touch screen in front of you.
Thank you, Chairman. In favour of the motion 42, none against with no abstentions, so the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I'm now going to move on to item 9, the Constitution Review, which is proposed by Councillor Webster and seconded by Councillor Alison Bennett. Councillor Webster, you're extremely busy this evening. Can I ask you to speak on this, which is on pages 47 to 52 of your papers?
Thank you, Chairman. Last December, a cross-party working group was convened to carry out the annual review of the Constitution, and councillors sought advice from officers, including obtaining an external perspective from an interim monitoring officer to take an in-depth review of the Constitution and its appendices. This followed the review carried out earlier by Sandra Prail and presented to Council in September 2021. As members will recall, this gave significant thought to the structure and quantity of meetings and how the Council's approach might lead to more efficient and effective decision-making. Our review also considered all relevant organisational and legislative changes and took the opportunity to update and format the document for ease of use. Members fully debated the structure and quantity of the Council's statutory meetings, and this led to recommendations set out in the proposed Constitution appended to papers. These included moving to 2 scrutiny committees and rationalising the number of statutory meetings across Council, Cabinet and other committees. And we benchmarked similar councils, and members noted that despite recommending some substantial changes to the numbers of meetings at Mid-Sussex District Council, we would remain an outlier in the number of meetings that we held. We debated the size of the scrutiny committees, with the group settling on 11 members. We noted that in future the Vice-Chairman should be an active participant, and we asked that officers ensure new councillor induction includes the role of the Chairman and Vice-Chairman. And importantly, members reiterated the aims of having a new approach to scrutiny, and that the objective was for more in-depth and detailed scrutiny of issues, enabled by focusing time and resources into fewer meetings. In the section dealing with council tax, 2 clauses have been added as specified in legislation. These formalise the practice of recorded vote in relation to changes to council tax and confirm the ineligibility of councillors to participate in such a vote if their own council tax is in arrears, not in areas, as stated on page 49, paragraph 15. And councillors, officers do apologise for that typing error, and there is another, but I will come to that. The council tax base, as opposed to the council tax levels, is delegated as an officer function and removed from the Constitution. This is because setting the base is a prescribed, not a proscribed process, and that is in paragraph 16. To ensure a detailed response to questions from councillors and members of the public, the deadline for presenting questions has been moved back 24 hours. The new deadline will be 1 p.m. on a Monday for Wednesday council meeting, and public and councillor questions to council are an important aspect of council meetings. Finally, the Sustainability and Climate Change Advisory Panel terms of reference have been removed following the work to develop, agreed and implemented the Sustainable Economic Strategy and Action Plans. Chairman, I want to end by thanking the cross-party members for their very substantial investment of time and thought into this very detailed piece of work. It's been the most detailed piece of work since I've been a councillor. We had the benefit of long-serving elected members, as well as newer members from right across the council, along with new senior officers and an interim monitoring officer providing an external perspective, as I said. I'm pleased to recommend this unanimously agreed constitution to council this evening, and I want to thank Councillor Alison Bennett for her agreement to second my proposal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Webster. Councillor Alison Bennett, do you wish to speak now, or do you want to
Like to reserve my right to
reserve your
exchange.
right? Okay, absolutely fine. Councillor Henwood, you wish to speak?
Oh, thank you. I'm not speaking against anything, but I would like for it to be considered in the future, perhaps if one were not a member of a particular scrutiny committee, but one was particularly interested and experienced in that aspect, as in the distant past, that councillor could attend as an observer and perhaps engage in the debate. That's all I would like to be considered, Chairman. Otherwise, I fully support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Webster?
Thank you, Chairman. It is possible for members to attend scrutiny meetings, to observe, and at the discretion of the chairman, of course, as is always the case, members can speak at committees, and it's just advisable to alert the chairman beforehand that you wish to speak, and perhaps knowledge of that needs to be covered in the member training. And I see Terry Stanley nodding his head in agreement.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Christopher Phillips, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I did sit on the working group, and I do agree with all the proposals, with one minor exception. I do feel we've gone from 3 to 2 scrutiny committees, and then we've reduced the numbers from 15 members to 11. So effectively, we've gone from 45 members on those groups down to 22. I accept Councillor Webster's point that people not on the committee can come and speak at those committees, but I do feel that the number on the committee should actually stay at, numbers on the 2 committees should stay at 15 rather than the 11, and I would like to propose that, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Webster, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Chairman. I would just say that we did discuss the membership extensively, and there are 48 members on council in the future, and as I have said, it is possible for anyone to attend any meeting and speak at that meeting, and it is possible for debate to take place at council as well, which I think is an important point as well. And I don't know if there's anything extra that anybody else would like to add. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to revert back to Councillor Phillips. Do you have a seconder for your proposal? Councillor Gibson.
Thank you. So we're now going to debate that amendment.
Okay. Councillors, we are now going to debate the amendment put forward by Councillor Phillips. If you'd like to repeat your proposal, Councillor Phillips, for the benefit of the councillors.
Sorry, was it 13?
It's 13, it's para 6.1.
Yeah. It's para 6.1 on page 13, recommend that the numbers of members on the scrutiny committees be increased from 11 to 15.
Thank you. Would councillors, do you wish to speak on this item, Councillor Gibson, before we go to the vote on this proposal?
No, we need to debate it first.
We'll debate it. I have Councillor Hicks, please. Are you speaking on this motion?
Not about this amendment, no.
Does anyone wish to debate this proposal?
Councillor Gibson, then.
Councillor Gibson, would you wish to speak as seconder?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If this council exists at all, then it's certainly to scrutinise the policies and decisions which are taken at all levels. I'm seriously concerned that, having been the leader of a minority group, a small group, about the level of representation that it was possible to achieve with even the number at 15. We're going to see a change in the political balance as we move across the election period and we come back here in May. And I believe that it's important to ensure that there is sufficient breadth of political balance in the scrutiny committees in order to ensure that they are properly scrutinised across all issues. And I do not believe that that is going to be achieved with 11. It was a point that I made to the previous, to Mr. Clark previously, and I'm disappointed to see such a dramatic fall in the numbers in these committees. I believe that 15, and it's a perfectly sustainable number from within the 48 councillors that will return to this chamber. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. We're going to move to the vote on this proposal unless anyone else wishes to speak on this proposal.
Councillor Anne Eaves.
Is this on this, regarding this proposal? Please go ahead, Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to back up the previous two speakers. I think it's a shame if there's only 22 members involved in scrutiny. And okay, you can say there are planning meetings, there are other committees one can go on, but scrutiny is the heart of the whole operation. It's the most important part. So I would very much back the amendment to have 15 in each committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trumbull, is it regarding this proposal?
Yes, it is, Chairman.
Thank you.
We're talking about the amount of representation on a scrutiny committee. I would just remind all members that the ultimate scrutiny committee is council, so we all have a say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eggleston, is this regarding the proposal you wish to speak on?
The amendment, yes,
Yes.
Chairman. We did discuss this at length in the working party of which I was a member, and I recall likening it to the scene from Sleepless in Seattle, where they're picking out the china and they can't decide whether to have 6, 12 or 10, and they opt for 10. And, you know, there are going to be a range of views across the chamber on this. I would ask people to reflect on the fact that we go down to, not only do we go down to 48 members in the next administration, but you also have to take out the 7 members of the cabinet. So we actually go down to 41. There was a proposal to merge audit committee and standards, and we decided to leave those 2 alone. So we have 2 scrutiny committees. We still have audit, we still have standards, we still have planning, we still have district planning committee. So, you know, we have with effectively 41 members, you know, we know that there will be a situation where you have to arm twist members of your group to join a committee. And I would far rather have a smaller number of people who really want to do the work of a particular committee than having to, you know, force reluctant members to take a post on a committee just to make up the numbers. As other members have said, you know, and as you all know from your experience of me over the last 4 years, scrutiny is not the be-all and end-all of our debates. We often bring it back to the main chamber and consider matters again. So, yes, it was a debate that we had in the working party, but I do actually think that the number we landed on at 11 was the right number.
Thank you, Councillor Eggleston. I'm now going to pass on to Councillor Phillips. You have a right to reply to the comments made.
Thank you, but I'm happy to move to the vote, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Webster, do you wish to speak before we go to the vote?
Yes, please.
Please do so.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to pick up on one point that Councillor Gibson made about the difficulty in obtaining a voice in meetings. And I just want to remind members that there is a calculation done on political balance, and that calculation is done for all committees. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to move to the vote on the proposal made by Councillor Phillips. Would you all vote now, please?
Chairman, votes in favour of the amendment 10, against the amendment 31, with one abstention. So the amendment is defeated and the debate moves back to the debate on the original motion.
Thank you. We go turning now to the substantive item. Councillor Hicks, you've been very patient. Please.
Thank you, Chairman. I fully support the proposals. I'll just highlight in terms of the Audit Committee, the increased responsibilities, which I'm pleased to see in terms of not just reviewing the annual accounts and the Treasury Management Statement, but looking at some of the more detailed financial policies and risk management processes within the organisation. So I look forward to having a greater scrutiny role there. So perhaps the comments about from 3 to 2 scrutiny committees aren't correct, because effectively the Audit Committee is becoming a more powerful internal scrutiny committee, and perhaps we should also bear in mind the membership of the Audit Committee, particularly as councillors can't be substituted, in terms of we will perhaps need to keep that under review if these other areas require significant input. I would also just draw the council's attention to the increase in the in terms of the key decisions limit from 100,000 to 200,000, and whilst I can see that has some provisos, it brings a slight question to me in terms of clearly a community centre in an individual ward could be below that amount and technically be not a key decision. But I would hope that in the round the authorities here would clearly designate that as a key decision where it's a significant importance for a particular area of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. I have no other councillors wishing to speak, so I'm going to revert to Councillor Alison Bennett as seconder.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second this motion. All I would add to the comments made during the amendment are that there is provision within the Constitution for it to be reviewed on an annual basis. And so when the working group was meeting and we were discussing whether there should be 2 or 3 scrutiny committees, or there should be 11 or 13 or 15 members of those committees, we were assured that we have the opportunity to review that each year if it's not working. So hopefully that will give everybody some comfort that we can revisit this decision in due course. Other than that, I'm happy to second the motion and go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bennett. So we'll move now to the recommendation. We've got the recommendation. Recommended to adopt the updated constitution, noting the changes outlined in paragraph 9 to 28. Would you now please vote on this item?
Thank you, Chairman. In favour of the recommendation, 37, against 5 with no abstentions, so that motion is carried.
Thank you. I'm now moving on to item 10, which is the programme of meetings for 2023-2024. This item is proposed by Councillor Webster and seconded by Councillor Asher-Edwards. It's on pages 53 to 58 of your papers. Councillor Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a natural progression from the previous item, and I hope members will note that there is a more even spread of meetings across the municipal year, and that does not, this programme of meetings does not preclude additional meetings being added in if the need arises, and I think that's an important point to make in terms of the debate that we have just had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Asher-Edwards, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right, Chairman.
Thank you. Does any councillor wish to speak on this item? I see none, so I'm going to revert to Councillor Asher-Edwards.
Happy to go to the vote, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like the recommendation is on page 53 to approve the programme of meetings at Appendix 1. Would members please vote now?
Thank you, Chairman. In favour of the motion 39, 2 against with 1 abstention, so that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Moving on now to item 11, the MSDC Pay Policy Statement of 2023-2024. This item is proposed by Councillor Cromie and seconded by Councillor Asher-Edwards. It's on pages 59 to 66 of your papers. Councillor Cromie.
Councillors will know that this is a report we receive annually under the Localism Act, and this year the report follows the standard format and there is no legislative or other changes. I'd also like to note that Mid-Sussex staff were in receipt of the nationally agreed £1,925 increase for the year 22-23. This represents a 9.6% increase for our lowest paid staff and an average increase of 6.9%, which is significant in these challenging economic times. I hope councillors will agree the recommendation before them, and I propose this motion to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Cromie. This item is seconded by Councillor Asher-Edwards. Do you wish to speak now on this? Or reserve your right?
Thank you.
Do any councillors wish to speak on this item of the agenda? No. I see none. So we're going to go to the vote, please. Councillor Asher-Edwards, I apologise, did you wish to speak on this item? Thank you. So please, councillors, vote now on the recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. In favour of the motion, 41, 1 against, with no abstentions, so that motion is carried.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to item 12, to receive the leader's report.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is the final full council meeting of this term of office. I hope members will forgive me if I just reflect briefly on some of our work together over these last 4 years. It has been at times a challenging term of office. The first half dominated, of course, by the COVID pandemic, which brought significant additional responsibilities to the council to support our community, administer millions of pounds of business grants to help save local jobs and businesses, and deliver a number of national response duties for the government. And as members will know, it also had a significant impact on this council's own budget, with us having to use millions of pounds of reserves to underpin our services, and particularly our leisure centres, during periods of social distancing and reduced demand. And I'm really pleased that together we have put the council's finances back on an even keel, with a budget for the year ahead which does not utilise reserves. But we've also made significant progress in delivering on the high quality services that our residents demand and expect, and ambitious plans for the future of our communities, like our Parks Investment Programme, introducing our weekly food waste collection trial to boost recycling, expanding the amount of temporary accommodation that we own and will be building to support families at risk of homelessness, backing our local businesses and ensuring we have a thriving local economy through our sustainable economy strategy, our grants programme, our full fibre rollout, and the plans we have for a regionally significant science and technology park, protecting our leisure centres and bringing forward detailed plans for our new centre for outdoor sport, ensuring we have an up-to-date local plan to protect our district's green spaces from uncontrolled speculative development. 2 levelling up fund bids to try and unlock the development of Burgess Hill Town Centre, which will continue to work with New River on to try and find a resolution. And as you've heard, a clear vision to ensure we have a modern, fit-for-purpose community and entertainment venue on the Clare Hall site, all while ensuring we continue to have the 3rd lowest council tax in the whole of East and West Sussex. They are important pieces of work for our district, and I'd like to thank members, my cabinet colleagues, and our officer team for all of the contributions that have been made to that work over these last few years. And can I thank members for their service? Standing for public office, whatever our disagreements sometimes, is a noble thing to do and an important thing to represent your local community and be your community's voice in this council chamber. And I hope members will feel that they've made a positive contribution over this term. And can I also, Chairman, thank members for the privilege I've had of serving as leader of the council for this term of office. It is a great honour to represent your home, your community where you've grown up, and I'm very grateful for that. And Chairman, may I wish those members who are standing again the very best of luck in the elections, and thank those who are standing down for all that they've contributed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Cornish, you wish to ask a question of the leader?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chairman. It was regarding the Levelling Up Fund bid that you mentioned just now, because your party have written to residents in Burgess Hill stating the reason that MSDC failed to win their Levelling Up Fund application for Burgess Hill Town Centre is because the Town Council clerk didn't write to the government to support the LUF bid from MSDC. So, on that basis, I just wondered how many bids for government funding has the leader written to express his full support for, where he has never seen the contents of that bid, never been invited to participate in that bid or contribute to that bid. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ashford.
Thank you, Chairman. All I'm going to say is that I did write in support of the Levelling Up Fund bid on both occasions to try and ensure we get the investment that our district needs.
Councillor Bradbury.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to thank the leader for his service. I wonder if you'd just like to reflect on the situation with our leisure centres, where we're keeping all 3 leisure centres open, and indeed introducing an exciting programme for a new centre for outdoor sport. And I wonder if you'd like to compare that with a neighbouring council where they're currently consulting on whether they can keep one of their leisure centres open.
Councillor Ash-Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bradbury is absolutely right. It has been a real priority for this council to protect our leisure centres. We know that they offer a huge amount to residents right across our community for sport and leisure and activity. And it's been a really significant example of putting your money where your mouth is to get them through the pandemic. And as Councillor Bradbury says, other councils have closed leisure centres, operators of leisure centres have gone bust, and indeed there are councils in Sussex looking at leisure centre closures at the moment, and this council has been forthright, quite rightly in my view, in keeping our 3 leisure centres open for our communities. And Councillor Bradbury is also right to highlight the really important plans for the Centre for Outdoor Sport. This is the biggest investment in sporting provision and leisure provision in our district that we've seen for many decades. And when I talk to other council leaders, nobody is saying, yes, we're investing in millions and millions of pounds worth of outdoor sporting provision. It is something that we have secured the funding and the land for, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it take shape over the coming years. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Leader. I do not see any other councillors wishing to speak, so I am going to move on to item 13, which is the report of Cabinet members, including questions pursuant to Council Rule 10.1. May I ask the Deputy Leader, Councillor John Belsey, to speak, please?
Thank you, Chairman. And likewise, I've enjoyed working with everyone across the House, so particularly over the last 12 months as Deputy Leader. The Leader's already just touched on the Centre for Outdoor Sports. This is Councillor Bradbury. But firstly, thank you to everyone, members and residents alike, who came to the consultation and engagement event at the Triangle for the Centre for Outdoor Sports. It had really good attendance, and there is strong and excited interest in the new centre, which we have got a challenging timetable to take forwards, and I look forward, like the Leader, to seeing that take shape over the next year and potentially opening in 2024, which is very exciting for residents of Mid-Sussex. As the weather improves, it will be nice to see more people using our parks and playgrounds, and in that respect, it's good to see that the playground improvements in Hollands Way in East Grinstead have been completed, as have the playground improvements in Dolphin Play Area in Haywards Heath. They are also completed, with some works to the paths in the Dolphin going to be taking place at a later date. The development of final designs at Hemleys Meadow and Finches Field, Mount Noddy and Victoria Park are underway. Further engagement is planned on those during the latter part of May, in this respect, before work commences later this year. And as already touched on by Councillor Salisbury, the Blue Heart Rewilding campaign is running again nationally. Mid-Sussex is a keen participant in this scheme, and ward members have been alerted to our programme of Blue Heart Spaces this year, which is the same as last year. The Blue Hearts should be going up very shortly, if indeed not already. And just finally, in respect to the food waste trial, there's been very significant uplift in recycling rates in those trial areas. We're currently reviewing the survey results, as well as having knocked on many hundreds of doors in the trial areas. So thank you to everyone who submitted feedback in respect to the food waste trial to date. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Henwood.
Thank you. Regarding the public consultation to do with the Centre for Outdoor Sport, when might we see any adjustments or alterations to the original concept plan? Because I'm sure the public had some ideas about how they'd like it to be changed or altered or improved. What time might we be able to see those, please?
Councillor Belsey.
Thank you, Chairman. I know all the comments are being taken on board by the consultants, and I will follow up with Councillor Henwood as to anything arising following that meeting. I should say I'm still receiving emails on it from people who, including one just yesterday. So I suspect there'll just be a bit of time of gathering that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belsey. I see no. Councillor Eggleston, would you like to speak?
The late arrival of the, thank you, Chairman, late arrival of the Deputy Leader's report. Just to follow up on Councillor Henwood, do I take from that there is a possibility that the mix of provision might change, because I know, you know, in a limited amount of space, trying to please all the people with a different range of sporting interest is obviously very difficult. But talking to different sections of the sporting community in Burgess Hill, you know, the feedback you get is that we're not being provided for. So I'm hopeful that some of that will be taken into account when the scheme is finally ready to be delivered.
Councillor Belsey.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the question. I mean, I think, Councillor Ferguson, we know that a lot of the sports clubs in Burgess Hill will continue to use their own facilities as well, particularly for first team action. And we will be working with those clubs, as you know, to help support their aspirations, both through the Centre for Outdoor Sports and outside of the Centre for Outdoor Sports. I think the intention was that the key facilities are firmly as set out in the report, and this was more of an engagement exercise with residents, however, and sports clubs. However, I think we'll just have to see what that feedback is and whether there are some alterations or suggestions that can be, you know, appropriately and fairly easily accommodated. But I don't expect to see significant changes from what has been put forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to move on now to the Cabinet Member for Economic Growth and Net Zero, Councillor Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, everybody. A brief report just to let you know that as we roll towards May, that there are a lot of good activities going on, important activities in the portfolio. First thing I wanted to mention, obviously, I think you've probably seen from MIS, is the newsletter has gone out to local businesses. And the reason I mention this is I'm glad to see that the number of subscriptions continues to grow. And I think that's a reflection of how close our council officers and this council has got to local businesses, and actually the high reputation that we have in businesses, particularly for what we achieved and did through COVID. And the more people that read our newsletter, makes it easier for us to get information from them and give information to them. Also launching this month is the county-wide low carbon support, which is obviously about supporting our businesses in relation to carbon. And I think I've mentioned this before at full council. This is a really, really important thread in our sustainable economic strategy. Our businesses are showing a huge interest in getting to net zero, as they should and they must. And this programme is the first step to providing them with the tools and the knowledge to do so. Also launched this month in Burgess Hill is the Advanced Digital Skills Project, which is to support residents and workers to upgrade their digital skills. And this reflects the growing digital industries in West Sussex and Mid Sussex, and again is a very, very important piece of work. And finally, I'm very grateful to our officer team and their leadership, but I'd also like to thank all the members of this chamber. I think nearly everybody who contributed really positively to the development of the sustainable economic strategy. It is groundbreaking. It is one of its kind in the UK, and I think it's a fantastic piece of work that we all leave this session of this council with, and hope that the future council builds upon it and finds it as useful as I do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hillier. I see no questions. In that case, I'm going to move on. If you've still got any voice, count to the Cabinet Member for Community, Councillor Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just crossing out some of the things that I was going to say, because I have done a lot of talking, but what I am very pleased to report is that we anticipate completing 113 disabled facility grant adaptations for residents, and we'll be utilising 99% of the budget compared to 91 DFGs last year when we utilised 97% of the budget. And I do want to just make mention of the electoral services and democratic services teams who've been working very hard towards the May elections and finalising the new member induction programme to be delivered between May and December. And I hope members will be happy to hear about locations for the redeployable CCTV cameras have been agreed by partners for the Martlets car park in Burgess Hill and Mount Noddy car park and the Compass Garden, because these areas have currently been experiencing an unacceptable high level of antisocial behaviour. Sussex Police and BT are very aware of the Council's desire for an early completion for the permanent East Court camera installation, which I know Councillor Sweatman is going to ask me a question about afterwards. Members will be aware of my and the wellbeing team's passion for what they do, and as well as their above-target performance. I'm delighted to say that the new county-wide delivery programme for falls prevention comes with funding secured until 2027, which is very good to know. Councillor Hillier's already mentioned the sustainable economic strategy, and part of that is it promotes well-being and health in the workplace, and this part of the well-being service is standout free service to companies and voluntary sector organisations where less than 300 staff are employed. Something else that I really do want to mention is that Martin's Law is awaiting royal assent, and members may know that this law has been so named in memory of Martin Hett, who was killed along with 21 other people in the Manchester Arena terrorist attack in 2017. And those members who are keen on developing cycling and walking infrastructure will have seen the delegated decision on MIS and the subsequent publication of the LC whip on the website. I want to end, Chairman, by thanking those officers who have worked very hard with national consultants, town and parish councils, and our own councillors to produce this plan as a guide for infrastructure developments over a 10-year period. And absolutely, finally, Chairman, I want to thank everybody in the chamber for the work that we have been able to do together over the last 4 years, and for the officers' support that we have received. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Webster. I have one question from your colleague, Councillor Dick Spetman.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Webster. The question I was going to ask, as you probably all know, you took the wind out of my sails, so, but I'm very pleased to hear that at long last this has come about. I want to thank the Cabinet member and all officers involved, because there is a definite problem with drug abuse and antisocial behaviour down by the pavilion at East Court. And of course, we've got a play school there as well, so it's not very good for young children. Can the Cabinet member give me any idea when this is likely to take place, please? Thank you.
Councillor Webster.
Unfortunately, Chairman, I can't, because this is a project which is jointly managed between Sussex Police and BT, and we are in the hands of BT at the moment. But we are in almost weekly contact with them. And I think it is just about the sole job of our emergency planning officer to sit on the telephone and send emails to Sussex Police, BT, and their contractor, Chroma. And it is something that we are literally following up on a weekly basis, Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Webster. Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank Councillor Webster for his service for the last 4 years and indeed the last 12 years of exemplar service. And also, I was not sure whether to mention under your portfolio or Councillor Hillier, but recently Sussex Police have rolled out for high street retailers the new DISC system, which is an alert and recording information system, which a lot of the businesses have been asking for in all 3 towns and in wider villages. So I'd like to thank Cabinet member jointly and the officers for that rollout, and just wondered if he could confirm that the rollout, I believe, has started in Haywards Heath will then go to Burgess Hill and East Grinstead in May. If he could just confirm that situation. Thank you.
Councillor Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. It is my understanding that that is the case. Yes.
Thank you. I see no further questions for Councillor Webster, so I am going to pass on to Cabinet Member for Leisure and Parking, Councillor Ruth Demir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Hi. Right, hello. As the leader said, because we know that our leisure centres mean such a great deal to all our residents, both health and fitness. As you all know, we invested heavily in them while COVID was restricting the numbers. So our leisure centre contract update went to scrutiny last week. The LED replacements across all the 3 centres are now completed, and the work on the installation of the PV panels at the Triangle will be beginning soon. The good news is that visits have continued to increase, and the total attendance to the end of February was 1.3 million, as opposed to our target of 1 million. So we're getting there. It's good news. The revised fees and charges, which were in MIS for our leisure centres, together with cashless transactions, will be going live in April. And the negotiations with PL for the next financial year are in the final stages. On to EV, as you all know, we've got 60 plus charging points and they're now active. That's 91% of our priority sites. The charges at the Orion car park are now live again, while the Cyprus Road issue has now been resolved. And the charges will be operational next week. The on-street charges at Priory Way and Grove Road are now live too. Mount Noddy and the Wilderness car parks are in the design and planning stage, while the Haywards Road and King Street are being evaluated as we speak. On parking, cashless transactions continue to be well above target at 65%, and pay and display income is 7% above budget. And that's good news because the season ticket income is also recovering, and that's 19% above budget. So it's good news all round. The other, before anybody asks me, we've also successfully upgraded all our pay and display machines to 4G, well in advance of the 3G cut-off. So finally, I'd just like to say thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you all. It's been a pleasure. Our senior management team, our officers are just amazing, so I thank them. Mid Sussex is a great council, and Mid Sussex is a great place to live and work, and I will continue each and every day to make sure it stays that way. So thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor Demir, for that rallying question. We have no question for you. I'm going to move on to the Cabinet Member for Planning, Councillor Salisbury.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess with planning, the experience for most members is either the telephone from somebody local who's got some little bug that they want to iron out, or the planning committees for those that take an interest in them. Of course, we know that we've got all the members who turn up for the planning committees. And I'd like to thank them for doing that because it's an onerous task. It's not simple to make that sort of decision, and they do it very well. And I'm very pleased that the training that we gave to chairman and to the members right at the beginning of this period has really shown good results in that a lot of the decisions that previously were going to appeal, the committees have become very focused, and we've really got some very good decisions being made, and I thank the committees for that. Probably people don't take a lot of notice of how we achieve planning. We've got a department, the Development Management Department, which some of them sit in this building and they sort of rotate through, and a lot of it is up and down IT lines, and we don't see that. So how big is what they deal with? Well, in 21-22, they dealt with 2,609 planning applications, which when you think about it and you think of the size of the documents that come out and the rest of it, it's an incredible amount of work. And within that number, there were 317 minor schemes, but 56 major schemes, and we all know from the planning committees, you know, what a commitment to putting that together is and coming to decisions about it. It fell off slightly in 22-23, and we got 2,311 applications, of which 314, very nearly the same as the previous year, were minor schemes, but 62, 6 more major schemes came through. And why the fall off? Well, who knows? Could have been a result of the rising costs from the pandemic and developers holding back a bit. It might be that they're waiting for the new MPPF to be announced later on this year to know where they can go. I don't know. But anyway, we've still got large numbers. And of course, we're now seeing sites from the sites DPD allocations coming through. So we can see that the workload will be continuing and no doubt increasing. Part of the work of planning committees is to approve employment sites. That's really important, isn't it? You know, because we all want to see successful employment within Mid-Sussex. And Panettone Park, it's a name that I only came across recently. It was known as the hub. Okay, so Panettone Park was sitting there with the DPD warehouse, but then some vacant ground. Well, that ground has changed hands, and the new development will include 10 small units to meet the needs of growing business, and the rest of it, the major part, is coming on at pace. Anybody who's driven down the A2300 will see the activity there. The groundwork is all going in very quickly. And it's because we've got a developer who recognised the pent-up demand in the local area, and that's just one site in amongst a number that were also approved within the DPD. The adoption of the DPD in 2022, following extensive examination, you remember it took 10 days, has led to fewer speculative applications, and in 22-23 there were no public inquiries where appeals were challenging the council's 5-year housing land supply, and I think that speaks volumes in that the plan has really dampened down the speculative stuff. Of appeals, it goes to show how the performance has improved, because we've only had, in 21-22, there were 14 appeals, and only 22% of them were overturned. Our decisions were overturned. And the government's benchmark is 33% to be a good council in doing appeals. There's bound to be differences of opinion between the inspector and what we decide, so that's a really good thing. And in 22-23, 35 appeals have been determined and only 8 were we turned over. That's 23% of the total, so 77% dismissed. Of course, planning also brings in capital for the council. Well, it goes into the revenue, but do you remember the old thing of points means prizes? Well, if a planning application is a point, then the prize is the fee for the application. And in 21-22, the contribution through planning, this is a big number, 1.145 million in 21-22, and in 22-23, 1.082 million. You know, so we're dealing with big numbers on this. So it's a significant contribution to the authority to help pay for our very good officers. So members, you can see that having a district plan supported by the site's DPD has not only controlled the speculative sites, but has decreased dramatically the number of appeals. The soundness of the plan means a higher proportion are being rejected. And just remember where we were in 2016, planning by appeal. We were in despair almost sometimes when we were in planning committees, because we've got that wonderful thing of the assumption for development, the presumption of development, which we've managed now to squash. But let's consider what the social benefits of planning are. The ONS figure, which was published just recently, for the median rent in England is £750 a month. Now, we know that that's not a figure that we have around here. I just looked up last week, a one-bedroom flat near where I live was on the market for £1,500 and it had gone almost immediately. Competition for rentals is really fierce, with landlords now having open bidding, would you believe, for people to apply, and they can only see a video of the property before they make an application. There are now 500,000 fewer open market rentals available. So for tens of thousands of families who can't afford to buy this in England, this is truly a disaster. And affordable homes coming out of developments make a difference. And so I'm pleased to be able to announce that Mid-Sussex has a remarkably good record of this. In fact, I believe it may be the best in Sussex, probably across the south of England. I haven't looked at the south of England. And when I use the word remarkably, I mean it. It's remarkable what we've done. So if we could just look at briefly some of the numbers. In 21-22, the average from our neighbouring authorities, Crawley, Horsham, Brighton, Chichester, Eastbourne, Lewis and Wealden, was somewhere around 180 to 200. We produced 349 affordable homes. In 22-23, those same people produced, they were much better. But we produced 355 against numbers that were very much lower from the other authorities. And if you take the last 3 years, so let's look at a broader period, the average across those authorities was in the mid-500s, and we produced, up to the end of February, 808. Now that is life-changing for 808 either individuals or families. So it's something not to be just a number on a piece of paper, it's life-changing for families. I have to say that coming to the end of this, my only regret is that we talk about affordable homes all the time, and I do wish there was more opportunity to have social housing, and I think you all know the difference between the 60 and 80%. And just as a comparison, the one actually who came out with more over 3 years was Wealden with 729. Well, to produce those extra 270 houses, it cost them £440,000 in costs and £235,000 for their own council defence of the 2 appeals, which was 900 properties. You probably all remember the newspaper reports. I mention that because it highlights it's very important that you don't just take local opinion without a very sound evidence base. That's what happened to Wealden. Big money, and they lost both those appeals. So I laud the way our officers put together our reports so that we can make sound decisions, and our committees who've done a really good job over the last 4 years, and I thank them all for that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Salisbury. Councillor Henry.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for the information, relevant information. I'm a little diverted from that because I'm quite interested when we have an application come forward and we have outside consultation bodies. We all know Southern Water never object. I'm particularly interested in NHS responses because I've seen that the NHS will have no objection to certain proposals, but to be quite parochial, in East Burgess Hill, for instance, where we've had several hundred houses, there is no NHS facility available within that area. And now, of course, Prodace are now suggesting after 6 years, because there is no NHS provision, they'll provide more residences. So my question is, how can the district council bring influence upon such bodies, particularly the NHS, which is pretty essential, to bring influence upon them so that they see the need of the community when the houses are being built? That's my question, Councillor.
Councillor Salisbury.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the question. I think you almost know the answer. We are so dependent on the opinion of the so-called experts in these other areas, and it's not just the NHS. Education is one which drives me mad, because we put facilities in, and then the education authorities decide that they can shuffle the pack and deal with it another way. All I can say about the NHS is that we do press them hard. They are questioned about the provision that they want in a certain area, and the leader has written on occasions to some of the local, particularly our MPs, to press them about getting better decisions out of the NHS of where we provide things. I can only imagine that budgets in all of these areas force them to try and bring groupings together, which is bad for residents because you then have to travel further. But we will continue to press to try and get those facilities, which is why we put them into major sites, and we have policies around major sites which says it will have education, it will have NHS and the rest of it, and we push those suppliers to try and make sure that that's delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salisbury. Councillor Alison Bennett, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor, for raising panettone in your update. As it happens, this afternoon I wrote back to a resident who had written a lengthy email about her experience of living opposite the panettone development, the hub in Goddard's Green, and I'm happy to forward that to you when I get home this evening. In amongst a fairly lengthy email, which I've done my best to respond to, she raised a concern about the sustainable transport links into that site, and specifically the bus stop that's on the A2300. And she cites that in her time of sort of living opposite the development, she's not seen a single bus stop at that bus stop. And she speculates that it's because buses would find it too dangerous to pull into that lay-by and come out again, and maybe the bus stop should be within the site itself. I said to her in my reply that she needs to talk to the county councillor and it's a county issue, but I would really appreciate it if you could have a look at that and see if that's the case, that the bus service is up and running or not yet, and maybe advise me on what the best way forward is in terms of responding to her on sustainable transport shift we need. Thank you.
Councillor Salisbury.
Oh, yes, thank you, Councillor, for that. I can only imagine, and I'm speculating here, that the bus links will be part of the broader development that's going on there, because you know that they're feeding it in sequentially. But certainly I'll take that up and we'll get a reply for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salisbury. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do have a question, but I'd like, just on behalf of the independent group, to thank you for the professionalism, patience and impartiality with which you've conducted these meetings. Thank you. For the Councillor Salisbury, the early results from the 2021 census show that Crawley Down has risen to be the 10th largest village in Sussex. I just wondered, where do you think Crawley Down will sit in the 2031 census results?
Councillor Salisbury.
Depends how active your residents are, Councillor.
I have no more questions for Councillor Salisbury. I'm going to move on to last Cabinet Member for Housing and Customer Services. Certainly last, but certainly not least. Councillor Cromie.
Thank you. So we've had some great comms go out from the council in recent weeks, and one that I really want to draw your attention to is the grants for the coronation, mainly because there's 2 days left. So if you have organisations in your local area that are going to benefit from that, please signpost them to that sooner rather than later. We also widely communicated our recent Centre for Outdoor Sports engagement event, and we set up an engagement hub web page, so those people who couldn't attend could still track on the progress, ask questions of the project team and leave feedback. We've also had a great graphic go out highlighting the money from the community grants to the All Saints in Lingfield so they could set up a Ukrainian drop-in centre, a community grant awarded to Hayward Sea Football Club to improve facilities for players, staff and supporters. And I'm really pleased to see us celebrating the help given to these great organisations in our district so that they can continue to do the fantastic work that they do in our communities. Moving to housing, due to the cold weather, we've had to implement the severe weather protocol twice recently, and during that time we accommodated 6 people. And I'm really pleased to confirm that we're in the final stages of bringing on Beam, and they're an organisation who help families at the risk of homelessness into employment and alternative accommodation. So they're a really fantastic organisation, and bringing them into the district will bring great opportunities to the people that they work with. The customer service team have operated an extremely successful voucher scheme, and again there's 2 days left on this where we help residents obtain white goods and groceries. To date we've paid out 125 white goods vouchers, and that totals £12,500 and 213 supermarket vouchers totalling £3,325. Residents can either self-refer themselves or they can be referred internally through our services that will triage and identify need. In this current climate, it's a clear demonstration of help being given to those who need this the most. Now, I know a few councillors are interested in the performance of the out-of-hours call handling service. So while we continue to monitor the performance, I'm pleased to report that the average call wait time now is 31 seconds for February, and that's out of a total of 24 calls. Finally, revenue and benefits. We successfully completed the annual billing process with bills and benefit letters for the next financial year were posted on the 14th of March. Included in the annual billing process, we've awarded an additional up to £50 off council tax bills for those who are in receipt of council tax support but still has an amount to pay. To date, we've awarded 2,320 payments, and more will be awarded as claims are received throughout the year. Pending existing updates, there'll be small business relief to 300 small businesses who have been negatively impacted by the business rates revaluation. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no question for you, Councillor Cromie. So in that case, I'm going to move on to item 14. Questions from members pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2. I have none. And before I close this meeting, I would like to thank everyone for these beautiful flowers and for the presents, which I'm sure I shall love. And most importantly, I'd like to thank my Vice Chairman for all he's done to support me during these last 2 years. Thank you so much. So I'm going to close this meeting at 8:32, and thank you all again for your attendance and for your support, and please